do Americans mean when they say that they're spiritual? It seems like a straightforward question, but there's definitely not a straightforward answer. A survey found that among the 70% of US adults who can be considered spiritual in some way, certain beliefs about souls, spirits, and science are generally held in common. But members of the group have conflicting ideas about spiritual practices like meditation and varying relationships with religious institutions and ideas. Spirituality is a word that has much to do with people's sense of identity and with their political positions, as it does with any kind of sort of identifiable experience or something that you can easily point to. In recent decades, the term religious has experienced a subtle and then increasingly more significant fall from grace. A growing group of Americans is dropping out of the organized religion, and even those who remain active can be uncomfortable with the term religious. This trend is driven by a number of factors, like a presumed link between religion and conservative politics, and the fact that relatively few young people today were raised in religious homes. There's really not a clear dividing line between spirituality and religion when you really think about it. The 22% of Americans who fall into the category of spiritual but not religious have much in common with those who are spiritual and religious. For example, similar large shares of the spiritual but not religious and the religious and spiritual believe that people have a soul and a spirit, that there is something spiritual beyond the natural world, and that unseen spiritual forces exist. Spiritual but not religious Americans are no more spiritual on average than US adults who are both religious and spiritual. Still, there's some key differences, such as the spiritual but not religious are much less likely than others really to believe in God the way that the people in, say, Christianity or Islam believe in God. Their differences are slightly different from the Bible. But members of the category do often believe in a higher power or a spiritual force. And the spiritual but not religious are less likely to attend worship services regularly and more likely to hold negative views of organized religion. The good news is that a large share of Americans believe in or at least remain interested in religious concepts like God, the afterlife, and miracles. So which are you? Are you the religious but not spiritual, or the religious and spiritual, or are you just the spiritual? And if there is a difference between being spiritual and not religious, according to you, what is that? What does that look like? Because when I look at it, I really see that many people that are spiritual, they still practice things that are practiced in religious settings, such as prayer, such as meditation, even things like tarot, which comes from religion, or yoga that came from religious practices as well. Hit me up in the comments. I'd like to know, what is the major difference in it between it to you guys? Yeah, what is the difference between it to you guys? Because I would really love to know. We're definitely seeing a decrease in attendances in churches at this point, but we're also seeing an uprise in the spiritual community. So if there is a difference, I would love to know. Now, for our first segment of the day, I'm going to turn you over to Goddess with one of our favorite segments, Tell 'em with Tara. Goddess.
God is switching the code here with Tell It With Tarot, and I will be doing your general collective message for the week. I will be utilizing tarot as my tool of divination, as well as breaking down the energetics as to how this energy can manifest for us in this week. I would like you to keep in mind that tarot does not dictate your life, but solely acts as a messenger as to what is the energies that are influencing our lives. So let's get into it. So here we have the Knight of Wands, which is the personification of fire, as well as in the bottom of the deck we have the Sun card, which makes a really interesting combination to show up for the energies ahead, because we will be having a total solar eclipse happening on April 8th, and then in a fire sign, which is the sign of Aries. Not only is the sun going to be there, but we will be having a stellium, which is 3 or more planets. In this case, we will have the sun, the moon, Chiron, the North Node, Venus, and Mercury in retrograde, all in the sign of Aries. And the sun specifically will be at the 29th degree mark, which brings us to a completion of one chapter and moving us into a new chapter. And that's what we see here with the Knight of Wands. This is a very fast, energetic, and spiritual transit that's going to be inspiring us in creating impulsion and lots of passion and triggers and so many different emotions to awaken in our bodies. Keep in mind to do some grounding work, get into some meditation, because this is the elements of fire. This energy can move really fast, and so you may feel like really charged up and ready to go and take the actions to move ahead, because there's going to be a lot of resources that's going to illuminate themselves to utilize for your endeavors ahead. However, just like fire can really charge you up, it could also burn out if you are not channeling this energy correctly, especially with a total eclipse. Later on in the week, we will be experiencing other transits that are just as powerful, also influenced by this solar eclipse. And so it is going to be important to pace yourself through this energy. Also keep in mind that the Knight of Wands represents military, as does Aries. Aries is ruled by the sign of Mars, which rules over the military. So there can be certain situations that are surrounded with the military. And there was actually news being released that the National Guard will be coming out into certain states at this time for the solar eclipse. And so definitely pay attention to the events and the energies around you. I would definitely say if you are experiencing emotional triggers or passions or sacred rage, if you will, know that it is safe for you to feel your emotions, but also take into account that you are responsible for your own energy. And so it may be best for you to really just dive deep and get into the core of what your triggers are, to really bring some peace, some happiness. And so for some of you, this will be inner child healing. You know, Chiron represents the wounded warrior as well. And so some of these triggers are going to feel as if it's impossible to heal. And there's a reminder that all things are possible, to allow you to really transcend into your highest and greatest version of yourself and find the solar light within you. Find your inner sun and rise to the occasions ahead. But take your time. Rather than impulsively reacting, you're going to allow yourself the wisdom to respond. Also, we will be having Leo as the rising sign during this solar eclipse, and the sun energy is also represented by the zodiac sign Leo, which is the 5th house. So how do you see yourself? She's reflecting upon a mirror. Mercury in retrograde asks us to reevaluate and reflect upon what is going on in our lives for us to really transcend past the illusions.
Thank you, Goddess, for that segment in Tell 'em with Tarot. Now let's get into some spiritual discipline. The discipline of the day is fasting. It is often remarked that one must fast for spiritual strengthening. Fasting has been an innate cultural feature in many societies across the world. People not only fast for its spiritual significance, but also the consequent physical benefits. In some cultures, fasting is a mandatory aspect of religious initiation. In history, fasting has been a means to purge, repent, protest, and prepare for important rituals related to events such as birth, weddings, and death. There are innumerable fasting occasions in Indian culture due to the vast, diverse expanse of the country. Each unique region has distinct deities and dissimilar religions. Fasting, thus, has become a beautiful amalgamation of disparate, homogeneous practices. Fasting traditionally in Hindu culture is associated with keeping the body lighter. Food is a strong stimulus. When we consume large quantities of food, the body becomes dense and a major hindrance in meditation rather than a spiritual receptor. A common belief is that fasting allows the body to be a vessel for spiritual knowledge with ease. Continuous fasting forces our body to detach from the urges of the body, especially hunger and thirst. It serves from outer stimulus to inner seeking. Fasting purges the body and prepares it for long-awaited spiritual transformations. Now, Ramadan is a holy month for millions of Muslim adherents across the world. They strictly fast for religious prayer. Keeping constant remembrance of God through fasting is a divine convention without any parallel. Now, fasting in Christianity is an integral part of the faith. Christian fasting dates back to the biblical times when fasting was undeniably a method for purifying the body and nurturing the mind and the spirit. The common goal of fasting in various world religions is to draw one closer to God. However, its numerous beneficial effects on the body have led to the widespread adoption of intermediate fasting by the general population. The principle of fasting is taught in almost all major religions as a means of developing a higher level of self-mastery and self-control, and also a deeper awareness of how really dependent we are. When was the last time you fasted? Maybe it's time. Get to it.
Hey there, y'all. Ashe. I'm just out here planting seeds. So listen, just call me Mojo. I'm about to learn y'all something I like to call holy permaculture. Y'all ever heard of that? I'm talking about permaculture. It's a sustained, self-sufficient ecosystem developed with agriculture and a mix of your own spice. There ain't no certain protocol, ain't no certain way that it's done or nothing. It's your own type of garden, and you can grow whatever you want. Now, different things got different strains. We gotta take good care of all things we got access to, right? Make sure we keep it clean, make sure it's safe, you know what I'm saying? Nourish it. So I'm gonna teach y'all a little bit about how I keep things clean, protected, and nourished around my place.
Blessings, y'all. Welcome to the homestead. These here are 2 male white Chinese geese that I have. They're gonna be the guardians of the property, so they stay loose all night and keep all of the animals protected. as you can see, this is a male right here. You can tell that it's a male because of the way that they keep their heads pointed straight up. These guys gonna lay baseball-sized eggs, so they don't have small eggs like your normal chickens. And these guys are real feisty. You see how he's trying to fight me? I'm not provoking him in any type of way. They do the same thing to coyotes and raccoons and all types of varmints and stuff. One cool thing about them is they have this bone spur on their wings so they can knock stuff out. You see, he's not really trying to let me go or anything. So geese are really important on the farm to keep all the animals nice and safe. Thank y'all, gratitude. Another form of protection that we have in an animal on the farm is gonna be the guinea fowl. They're a very feisty bird. They're native to Africa, hence the name guinea. And they're also a very pretty bird. And I like to call them yard decoration because they look so beautiful. But they do a good job with keeping all of the snakes and stuff away. One cool thing about this bird is they'll go around the house in the morning time and peck off all of the pests that are climbing on the house. So I think that they're really good to have around if you're homesteading or farming. They're a good investment. If they don't know whose vehicle is pulling up into your yard, they'll make a loud noise to let you know, and they're just a very smart territorial bird.
And thank you, Mojo, for that segment. Look at the ducks, man. Look at the ducks, man. Wasn't that just such a beautiful segment? I can't wait to see more installments of that segment. And for those of you who are practicing, this horticulture and living off grid, or even, living on your own land, if you have any great tips, things that you like to submit, turn them into the show. We would love to put some of those things up. You know what I'm saying? And if anyone has any segments that pertains to spirituality and things of nature and whatnot of the sort, just feel free to contact us. Hit us up, hit us in the comments. Let us know. Reach out to us. You know what I'm saying? We'll try to make space. Once again, this show is literally meant to bring the spiritual community together from all walks of life, from all ages and all races. So I'm looking forward to, as the show progresses, that we're able to add new segments onto the show. Even next week's show, we're going to have just as many segments, if not more. So I hope you guys stay tuned for many more. But once again, thank you, Mojo, for that. What is the soul? The soul is a desire created by the Creator to enjoy Him, the light. It is actually in perfect adhesion with the Creator, just as it was when it was first created. But the soul needs to accomplish this situation in its own right, to actually obtain an equivalence of form independently, and in so doing, become like the Creator. In order to accomplish this task, the Creator completely separates the soul from Himself. This happens by giving the soul the exact opposite attributes that He possesses, the will to receive again. Through the disparity of form, the soul stops sensing the Creator and is clothed in a corporal body with the will to receive pleasure purely for its own sake. So if the soul does not sense the Creator, what does it sense? It senses our world, the very place that we consider our entire existence. In order to achieve the original state again, when it was completed and sensed the Creator, the soul must take on the task of attaining those attributes of the Creator. It does this through a process that is akin to giving birth to them, creating them itself. The soul, as it exists in our world, is no more than a point. From this single point, we can only perceive our own will, which is to delight the corporal bodies within which we reside. Yet from this point, remote as it could possibly be from the Creator, we are at the perfect place to start our journey back to the Creator. it is important here to not confuse the soul with the will to receive for ourselves, our current condition. Remember that the soul is a single desire to enjoy the Creator. In a way, the soul is a part of the Creator. It's just the Creator is the whole and the soul is the part. Everyone has a soul existing within them. When we first become aware of it, the soul is felt as a point in the heart, at the center of our desires, in our ego. But at what level is the soul? This is something we must all discover. We see millions of people all over the world with absolutely no recognizable desire except to fulfill their own wants. Within these people exists the soul as well, yet in an embryonic state. Kabbalah calls this a point in the heart. In this instance, the heart is the desire to take pleasure in everything around us. And that point is the one single desire out of all other desires a person possesses that is not a desire for worldly pleasure. It is the desire to reveal the Creator. The point in the heart starts growing through our desires development. Humans develop desires for physical pleasures and then for wealth, power, control, and knowledge. After those desires for worldly pleasures, generally called the heart, is the desires for spirituality. This desire is the end of the line, where nothing in the world can possibly fulfill the lack. The desire for spirituality seems to appear within the animate desire, hence the name point in the heart. Of course, those desires have nothing to do with the heart in our bodies. If we implant a new heart in someone, it wouldn't change a single characteristic in that person. Even if we implanted a new brain, the spiritual sphere has nothing to do with our biological bodies. The only thing that the biological body is for is to manifest spiritual things. The point in the heart is not only considered the soul, but the soul in potential. At this state, it resembles a lack that simply cannot be fulfilled. We know we want something. We know we're missing something, but for the life of us, we just can't figure out what we need. The point in the heart is like a drop of desire, a yearning for supreme attainment for the Creator. If a person begins to develop it, it grows like the sperm has fertilized the egg and now has evolved into a fetus. When it becomes independent, it's called a soul. And now it is story time. It is story time. A new segment on the show. We're going to enjoy. I'm sure a lot of you are going to enjoy this segment. We're going to turn it over to Mama Do It at this time, as she's going to take us into story time. Mama Do It. Let's go.
Greetings, family. Wamedu. Love and harmony, we are. The guide of righteousness and truth are our divine reflections. Welcome to another episode of Off the Books, a segment on the Ascended Masterz News Channel. I am Mamadou, here for a segment, Story Time with Mojo. Find family, gather friends, it's story time. Our story today is entitled Song and the Golden Flute. One glorious day, Song, brother of Du and Sun, the playful sisters, decided that he would tag along and see what day would bring. So in the back he chose to travel true the sisters' path, and to a flute, a golden rod, he assigned a task. As he would blow it and there was laughter, abundance and pleasure shall be their past. Unaware of their brother's presence, they frolicked, twirled, and danced. To their day there stayed an essence. From their joy there sprung the waters that would be made a pond. From a holly tree the brother looking on in glorious pleasure played for them a song. So glorious was the sound arising from the act there flew a presence. In the path that made the space, they laughed and sung in love and grace. The spaces filled with grass and water, they laid in life's green pastures. In its essence is fun and laughter. At the water's source they sat. As they stared at their reflection, grateful in heart and spirit, beauty was the light that shone. In love and care the sisters vowed their love. From every path and path they traveled, love would grow sweet songs. Sweet melody and dew would spread the sound. From the grass, sun would shine, just like song's sweet tune would flow. Hence, as you look at life's beauty around you, a meadow is where the story shows.
Thank you, Mama Do It, for that segment and story time. And I also want to thank you, the viewer, for watching another edition of Ascended Masterz News. For those of you who don't know, in case you're slow, I'm Hevy Maahes, aka Dark Cloud. What up, though? Peace.